On our first year at the property, we welcomed twin sister, 6-month-old son and dairy goats Dot and Jude. Unbeknownst to us, our young donelings were pregnant, and 3 months later, Jude was the first animal to give birth on the farm, with Dot following a few weeks later. In an instant, we were thrown into the deep end, raising kids and learning how to milk a goat. Something we weren't expecting to do until we'd had a bit more time with our girls and bred them the following year. We named the kids Hugo and Mabel, and both grew strong and mischievous. They're a welcome addition to the ranch, bringing us much joy and laughter.
It looks like our goat's been trapped in a bit of a compromising position here.
Sadly, we had to put Mabel down when she was 6 months old due to a compound fracture. And Hugo suffered a similar fate 6 months later, getting caught in some metalwork in his shelter. Like the buck who jumped several fences to impregnate 4-month-old Dot and Jude, their daring nature was unfortunately their downfall. We continued milking Dot and Jude after their babies had gone, drying them up around February last year. We wanted to give them another chance at being mothers, and we wanted to break the milking routine, so we'd have a bit more flexibility to stay off farm for several days. In March, we took them to visit a friend's buck before he was rehomed in the wheat belt some 5 hours away. Unfortunately, the girls were not yet ready to breed, and by May, after they'd come on heat several times again, we knew he'd been unsuccessful. It took me some months to find another buck to sire our girls, but in July we welcomed 2-year-old Milko from a farm 2 hours south of us to stay. The girls liked him instantly, and after a 6-week stay we were pretty certain he'd done the deed. Since then we'd been keeping a close eye on our girls, expecting them to give birth in the new year. We were expecting and hoping for multiple kids from both our does, but we couldn't be sure what would happen until the day of delivery.
So our goat Jude, our son and dairy goat Jude, she's just given birth to 2 gorgeous little twin sisters, little girls. We're incredibly lucky. And I had a bit of a long night last night. I got up 3 times in the night to check on Jude. She was actually in her enclosure. I put Dottie in this. This is the rabbit enclosure that we built for our rabbits, but unfortunately our rabbits all contracted calicivirus and died about a year ago. So this has been sitting unused. So I actually freshened it up with sawdust yesterday when I had a suspicion that Jude was going to give birth. Her behaviour had started to change. We'll have to just ignore that there's still the afterbirth coming out. I hope you don't mind, that's part of life. Jude had, her behaviour had started to change, and we thought that she'd be expecting her babies pretty soon. So I ended up putting Dot in here because I couldn't manoeuvre Jude by myself last night, and I wasn't 100% sure that she was in labour. And so I decided that I'd leave her in the enclosure all by herself, and I put Dot, our other goat, in here with her 2 babies. So I left her in the enclosure, and she just spent all night talking and just not comfortable walking around the enclosure trying to find somewhere to have her babies. She obviously didn't feel like it was safe to have them anywhere in her enclosure. The chickens lived in there as well, the cats go in there from time to time. I guess she thought it wasn't safe. So as soon as she's just seen the dog's come up, and so she's not happy about him being here. I think that's part of it as well. So she was in here. We had this gate shut. We put her in here this morning, and I had to pop out to get a couple of things done in town first thing in the morning, and when we came back they were already born. So obviously she was just waiting to be put in the right spot to have them. She just wanted to feel safe, and they obviously came out without any troubles at all, and I've come back to them almost completely cleaned up, and look at them, they were dancing about about half an hour ago. They've obviously had plenty of colostrum and they're healthy. They've already done their first wheeze and poos, and I've only been here for like an hour with them, so she's done a really great job. They're very healthy looking little babies. She really doesn't like all the animals outside, so I'm going to shut the door and we'll keep filming. I'll bring the camera into the enclosure. But I suppose while I'm here I should talk to you about Dottie as well. I'll do some cutaways and show you her gorgeous babies. So Dottie had her babies a week ago, and I had to go to Perth for Christmas, and then I also went to see some of my family that are visiting from over east, a couple of hours away from here, and that was a week ago. And Troy was actually home, and he checked on our Dottie in the evening and everything seemed fine. He didn't seem to think that there was any chance she was going to give birth that night. And in the morning he went down to the goat enclosures to check on them before he went off to work, and there were 2 little baby goats in the half steel tank structure that we used to use for our chickens. She'd birthed them in there and they were looking pretty healthy. Probably not as robust as these 2, but yeah, looking really great. So she had a little boy and a little girl. So we're incredibly lucky. We've ended up with 3 baby doelings and 1 little buckling this year. And so far they all seem extremely healthy. Oh, so Jude's just doing a little bit of nesting, scratching. That's apparently a sign that they're going to go into labour, but I didn't see her doing any of that. Perhaps she did it after I left her in here and I popped into town. But honestly, these babies, they must have been born in like 45 minutes, because when we came back, they were born and pretty close to being cleaned up as well. So it must have happened really quickly. She was just waiting for that moment to be put in here. I'm kind of kicking myself we didn't just like put off the chores we needed to do in town and just wait with her, but it doesn't matter, to be honest. I've seen her give birth before and it was a little bit more traumatic being her first birth when she was so young. So obviously this went off really, really fine. And being in here, she must feel really safe. I think I'll leave her in here for a few days, but we will make sure that they go out into the sun, because this doesn't get much sunlight in here. But wow, so lucky, 2 beautiful little girls. They've both got tassels like Jude. They might both be polled like Jude, which would be really nice. For them not to have the horns. That's actually where the afterbirth, where they were born. So I wonder if she's just like scratching that in, or I'm not sure. They're not scared or anything. Like Dottie's first baby, Mabel, her babies are a little bit more cautious around us, but I feel like Jude's babies are going to be those super playful goats, super friendly goats, just like our little Hugo was. So yeah, so lovely. Aww. Aww. Hello. Oh, you're you're burying your little baby. Have a look. Let's have a look at you. Oh, already standing like a champion. So I got a bit ahead of myself and celebrated a little bit early yesterday with our Dottie. She hadn't actually birthed the placenta, but I think I was just so excited to see the kids happy and healthy and strong and feeding that I didn't really think about that last step. And so she had the sort of what was left of the embryonic sac and stuff dangling out the back of her last night, and I just thought she might end up delivering the placenta last night, but it just didn't happen. So I've had to call the vet this morning. I spent 45 minutes with her, massaging her udder and milking her out a bit, and she was just looking at me and just trying to get some more oxytocin flowing to see if she could get some contractions to deliver that placenta, but I think the gap's been way too big. I probably should have been doing that at lunchtime yesterday, or even before when I was chatting to you guys on the camera, but I mean, to be honest, her kids were feeding a lot then and nothing happened. Maybe if we weren't in here filming, maybe she might have delivered it, but I don't know. And I've done some reading, and apparently if goats are deficient in selenium, it's quite common for them to have to not deliver their placenta. So yeah, and that is quite possible that she's deficient in selenium. I haven't been supplementing them with selenium. I've supplemented them with a lot of other things: boron, copper, magnesium, sulfur. I just haven't been offering them selenium. So and not enough seaweed, I don't think. But they never really ate the seaweed anyway. I kind of have to force it into them. So, yeah, and vitamin E. So selenium and vitamin E is kind of, they say that can lead to them not delivering their placenta. So everything was fine. Like, she had everything hanging out this morning, and then that must have fallen away, and I couldn't find where that went, so I suppose she ate it. But now she is starting to bleed a bit where the cord is sticking out. So the vet's coming after lunch. That's the only time they can come. So I've got a couple of hours to wait. I'm just keeping my eye on her. She seems fine. She's weeing, drinking, eating. She's actually just chewing a cud and ruminating at the moment. So she doesn't seem unwell yet, but I'm just nervous. I don't want any infection or anything to go wrong than it already has. Yeah, it's a shame. It's the weekend and the vet's going to come out of hours. So we're copying a $400 fee before anything's even happened, plus a $70 fee for them to come out here. So that hurts a bit. Maybe if I was onto it yesterday, but I would have called them in the afternoon on a Friday, and I think we would have copped an after hours fee anyway, because they wouldn't have been able to come until after 5 on a Friday. So, yeah. Jude, she is a lovable animal, but she definitely always causes us more issues than Dottie. But she has produced some wonderful little kids, and she is a great mother. So I suppose it can't really be helped if the placenta's not delivered. Something just wasn't right, and it just didn't work out. So yeah, she does seem to be slowing down now, so I really hope the vet can come and we can sort this out as soon as possible. I do get a little bit anxious about my animals. I want them to be, you know, healthy and well. At least her babies are well, and Dot's doing well with her babies. Push it out, Jude. Come on. You can do it. So things have been a little bit of a roller coaster with our Jude. Yesterday I got on the camera to chat to you because she hadn't birthed her placenta. The afterbirth had come down. Well, not all the afterbirth, but bits of it had come down. It looked like the embryonic sac and various membranes and all those sorts of things. And then it disappeared, and I think she ate it, but there was still cord hanging out, and I never really saw the placenta, so wasn't sure. Was fairly certain that she had it retained and that she hadn't delivered it. And then I massaged her udder and milked her out for about 45 minutes, and about 2 hours after that, she lay down and it looked like she was having contractions. It was actually just after I had the chat to you all yesterday. I wasn't really sure. I had to go look after the baby, so I just left her lying down. She wasn't getting up for her kids. She was licking them and everything. They were running over to her and she was licking them, but she wasn't getting up. I actually thought she was getting sick, and I went all stressed to Troy and said, oh, I think she's getting sick. But he was like, maybe she's having a labour. And then when I thought about it, I was like, oh, maybe all that, like, massaging her udder and milking her out got the oxytocin flowing enough to put her into second labour. We don't actually know what happened, but when I came back an hour later, the cord that was hanging out the back of her was gone, and there was a lot of blood coming out the back of her rear end. I wouldn't say like lots, it was just oozing out. And I'd say she's probably lost, since yesterday, she's probably lost at least 500 ml of blood. I find little splotches of it everywhere. When she lays down for a period of time, there'll be a pool of clotted blood on the ground. And I just spent this afternoon, just before I came in and filmed here, just cleaning her up a bit, because it was starting to get a bit smelly, that kind of old blood smell, and the flies were bothering her a bit. So she's pretty much cleaned up. I cleaned her up as best I could without stressing her out too much. Goats don't like water, so washing them is a little bit of a stressful experience for them. So I cleaned her up as best I could, without stressing her out, and got rid of all that blood. So it's still a mystery whether the placenta's in there or not. I'm really hoping and hopeful that it is delivered, or that most of it was delivered. Perhaps it ruptured slightly or something like that, and that's why we've got blood oozing out. I think, based on what I've read, the most important thing now is just to monitor her and make sure she doesn't get an infection if there's anything remaining inside her uterus. We don't want a uterine infection. So I've started giving her high dose vitamin C, so just drenching it, mixing it with water, and just drenching her. I'm doing that 3 times a day. I'm giving her about 3,000 milligrams each time, and I'm hoping it's not giving her scours, so I'm not giving her too much, and I'm just hoping that that will work or help prevent her getting sick. If she looks like she's starting to get sick, then we'll have to go down the path of probably penicillin or some sort of general antibiotic that we can get from the vet, but I'm just going to keep monitoring her. Apparently it's a thing, like retained placentas happen in some birds, in livestock, so if that is the case, it might not be fatal. It's just that we have to monitor it and make sure she doesn't get an infection. So at the moment she's doing really, really well. I'm putting all the minerals she needs in her feed. I'm soaking grain and making sure she has all that. I'm also adding extra vitamin C to that too. Tomorrow I'm going to go get colloidal silver and some probiotics from the stock feed store, so that I'll supplement her feed with that as well. And I've just put the lick in here and a big fresh bunch of local meadow hay. So it's food she's familiar with, and she's really tucking to that. She has not stopped eating since she gave birth. She's drinking lots, she's pooping lots, she's weeing lots. So I'm hoping she'll be fine. She's probably just bleeding a lot because it was perhaps a difficult birth. Her babies were quite big. She waited a long time. She was almost 10 days, no, she was a week after Dot, and so there's quite a big gap between the babies, but they seem to come on heat at similar times. So yeah, she had them inside a little bit longer than Dottie, and the same happened last time. Her baby Hugo was a lot bigger than Dottie's little baby Mabel, so I think she just births bigger babies, and perhaps that's why we just had a little bit more of an incident, but I'm hoping she'll pull through. Yeah, it's really emotional with goats because they are livestock, but they're also, I don't know, they're very affectionate. It's kind of like having a pet in a way, and you do get very close to them, milking them every day, and just looking after them during the pregnancy. So I hope she pulls through. The silver lining, or what I was really thrilled about, was that we didn't have to wait for the vet. Like, the placenta was delivered just before the vet was supposed to come at lunchtime yesterday, so if it was delivered, but basically, like, there was nothing hanging out her, don't step in your hay, there was nothing hanging out her rear end. She's going to go for stuff under the camera. Basically, there was nothing hanging out of her rear end when the vet was going to come, so I could just quickly call the vet and say, look, I think she's going to be okay. It looks like the placenta has passed. The vet was very kind and said, why don't you take a photo of what she's passed, and then I will be able to tell you if she has delivered it. And I just said, look, unfortunately there's nothing in here to show of it. The same thing happened with all the other bits that were hanging out of her after the birth. I left her for like an hour, and when I came back there was no sign of it anywhere in the sawdust. So I think she's very attentive, and she's also very aware of the chickens and the dogs and the cats around, and she just doesn't really want them coming in here and eating the afterbirth. So I think what's happened is she just ate it as soon as it fell out of her. Well, that's what I'm hoping anyway. So yep, we're just monitoring her for now, and I'll have to keep you updated in the next video as to how everything progresses. But on the positive note, her little babies are absolutely gorgeous, very friendly, gorgeous little things. So yeah, hopefully she doesn't get sick, and we're just looking after her as best we can until she's made a full recovery. I think I'll leave them in here just so they're not getting pestered by any of the other animals on the farm until she's made a full recovery. And hopefully that's just within the next few days. Oh, before I go, I should just tell everyone thanks for watching. Welcome to some of our new patrons that joined us in the new year. Brilliant to have you on board, and I can't thank you guys enough for supporting what we do. It just really helps us out. Animals, they are wonderful to have, and it really brings so much life to the farm, but they can be expensive and it can be stressful when you're looking down the back of a big vet bill. So just having your support is really wonderful for us, and it also means that we can put some money into our filmmaking gear. We have actually spent some money last year on some new filmmaking gear, and yeah, just try and bring you the best productions that we possibly can. If you're not a patron, that's no big deal. If you're just liking and commenting, subscribing and telling friends and family that might be interested in what we're doing about us, that really helps us out as well. So we look forward to seeing you at the next one, and bye for now.